What's going on? I'm Patrick Jagir, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to today's video. So I want to get into coronavirus in this one. I want to just give my 2 cents and my ideas, my view about what it means, where it came from, and where it's going and how long it's going to affect us. And a big part of this is I want to shed some positivity on this whole situation, because there's a lot of positivity surrounding this situation that nobody's talking about. But don't expect the mainstream media or politicians to tell you about positivity and to be calm and to look on the bright side, because that's not what they do. When they scare you, they make themselves a lot more relevant. So that's why they do what they do. That's why the news, every time people turn on the TV news, they're scared shitless and they think the sky's falling. So I want to bring some positivity to this whole thing, because it's not the Black Plague, it's not a third of the earth dying, it's not Armageddon, it's none of that. It's a serious situation, and we've been living very soft, easy lives, especially here in the Western world, in the United States. We're snowflakes. Honestly, we have a lot of control freak tendencies. And this is one of these situations out of nowhere that shows us that control is an illusion, and we don't have control over everything, and we haven't mastered nature. So that's what this is showing us. It's going to be a pretty quick passing thing. It might make a little resurgence next winter, but it's not, people who are standing on rooftops and shouting, repent, the end is nigh. It's not that time. It's not in the stars. And if it's not in the stars, it doesn't happen. And that's an interesting thing. In the Christian nativity stories, they talk about how these wise men from the east, these magi, found Jesus because they read it in the stars, and it's all through the Bible how, things have to be in the stars. And in other holy books, things have to be in the stars to happen on earth, and that's what the Our Father, on earth as it is in heaven. They're talking about astrology, because all religion is astrology. But, people think astrology is the real deal then, if they're religious, but, they talk to a modern astrologer, they don't quite believe it. So, but that's the idea. The universe is holographic, and the stars, the planets, show us what is happening, what is going to happen, and what has happened in the past. The universe is set up so you don't have to have multiple PhDs to be healthy, to know what's good for you, and to understand what's going on. It's really all very simple, but the simplicity has been obscured from us because, the modern world, the modern monotheist religions, they tore all those transitions down, and they ran off, or they killed the people who knew them. So we're trying to get this back in the modern world. These very simple yet profound understandings. So anyway, let's get into it. So this whole coronavirus situation it's a slow motion 9/11. Most of us, if you're old enough, remember 9/11, 2001. There was a huge fear factor, huge panic factor, and it never even remotely lived up to, what it was promised to be. You had people back during 9/11. I was in the military back then. You had military people, survivalists, saying you got to get off the grid, get out of the cities, get away from civilization. Armies of Al-Qaeda terrorists are going to take American cities over. There wasn't even potential for that, because that's not even what terrorism is. We even had, when I was at the Naval Academy, a 3-star admiral who was the superintendent, basically the college president, was interviewed by a local newspaper, and he was saying, well, we could have armies of Al-Qaeda troops landing on the beaches of the United States. And it's like, do you even know what terrorism is? There were like 200 Al-Qaeda members at its height. So people got in this huge panic and had no idea what was going on, and it skewed their view of reality. And it was it was a great Taoist term. It's reality infringement. So we had people in control of the media, high profile in politics, people in the defense industry wanted to sell some stuff to the government. They infringed upon our reality, and they gave us this false idea of what 9/11 was. Didn't even have the potential to live up to the fear. You know, it wasn't that our security services are so awesome at what they do. It just didn't have the potential to turn into some terrorist invasion. So coronavirus is the same thing, you know, and you see a lot of panic on TV about this, a lot of fear, you know, but there are a lot of companies who stand to make money off this whole thing, selling pills, vaccines, treatments. It is serious. There are a lot of people who come in contact with this virus who need medical attention, but it's not the end. It's not the end of us all. So I think this situation is a lot tougher than 9/11, because 9/11 was just boom. It was here and gone. And, you know, we were in the aftermath of the situation within minutes. This coronavirus situation is this, you know, it's taking forever to unfold. And it's frustrating. You know, people can deal with something that's just here and done, you know, but it's like when you have to tear like tape off of your skin, you know, especially if there's hair under it, or you have to tear off a Band-Aid. You better do it quick, because if you do it slowly, it's almost excruciating. So it's the same damn thing. That's what we're dealing with, and that's why it's so tough. So, you know, we have to be positive through this, and, you know, ask yourself, do you know anyone who has coronavirus? Because most people don't. And, you know, you definitely want to prepare for this. Well, you want to have prepared for this, I should say. And you want to take this seriously, but, you know, it's not worth getting all worked up and getting stressed out over something that has not touched your life yet. Know that you may have to deal with it, and have a plan for what you're going to do if you have to deal with it. And then go about your life and find something worth focusing on that raises your spirits, that improves your mood. You know, reconnect with people. This is a great time to, you know, kind of look inside yourself and see what needs to be improved, because we all have something. It doesn't matter who you are. So watch the fear, because the fear factor, it dumbs down your immune system. Once you get your stress hormones going, and they keep going and they keep pumping, your immune system doesn't work as well as it could. And then you're even more susceptible. So just bear all this in mind. So let's get into the astrology a little bit, and you know, we'll kind of circle back to some of my commentary here. Now, you know, where I think this came from, astrologically anyway, you know, if we look back to July 2nd, 2019, we had a solar eclipse in Gemini, which is where Rahu is. Rahu was there at the time. And, you know, during that eclipse, you had Sun, Moon, and Rahu all in Ardra. And, you know, one of the things the moon deals with is it's the sign of the physical body. Gemini is the sign of the lungs, because all these zodiac signs correspond to different organs and parts of the body. So, you know, and again, Rahu, diseases, infectious diseases, and Ardra is the poison. So, you know, it's like the body, the lungs being poisoned. But that, like I said, that solar eclipse was visible in, you know, it was Middle East, Northern India, China. So these areas are where coronavirus has hit the worst. You know, Iran, China, there are some other countries outside of that, but the brunt of it has fallen on China, and, you know, Iran's been pretty bad too. So that's where you're going to see the most of this. You know, Italy is an outlier. France is an outlier. United States, of course, is an outlier. It's on the other side of the world. But you're not going to see it, especially most people listening to me are American, you're not going to see it as bad here, because we were not in the path of the eclipse. So that's really what I think set that up. And even before that eclipse, Mars had passed that eclipse degree. where the whole thing happened. So Mars sort of, set a landmine for the whole thing. And then after that, you had another eclipse. You had it on the 25th, 26th of December, depending on where you are in the world. And that was in the opposite sign in Sagittarius. So you had solar eclipse with sun and moon at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. So 9 degrees of Sagittarius, that's almost right on top of galactic center point, where the Milky Way runs through the sky, the galactic center point. So in galactic center point, there's a big black hole there, and it's actually it's a center of galaxy, and it's for thousands of years it's considered to be the most spiritual part and the highest vibrational part of the galaxy, because these black holes don't just suck things in, but they spit out radiation too. And a lot of traditions saw that they believe that they believe that the beings, the spiritual beings who sort of oversaw the 3D world, the Gnostics called them the Aeons. They believe that the Aeons lived at the center of the galaxy because it's a still center point that everything rotates around, and it never moves, so it's timeless. So when you had this solar eclipse in Sagittarius, you had a pile up of planets. You had Jupiter there, K2, Saturn, you had Pluto. So in Sagittarius, it's a sign of philosophies, belief systems, can be religion, and especially when you get K2 there, you get Mars there becomes a lot, even you get Jupiter there becomes a lot of self-righteousness and a lot of just one-sidedness about belief systems. So, when the sun and moon were lined up with galactic center, we had a very self-righteous way of seeing things here on Earth. And so, when major planets line up with galactic center, you basically pull out of galactic center whatever is resonating, with your mind, with your thoughts and your feelings. So we downloaded this whole virus from galactic center because everybody was on their high horse and fighting about, Donald Trump's Hitler, or Donald Trump is an angel, or the greatest thing ever. And that's one of the big things people get self-righteous about, or it's like America should rule the world, America's the worst evil thing, and people just have these polarized viewpoints about all these different issues, and they demonize people who disagree with them. But hard to have diversity when everybody has to agree with you, right? So anyway, I think we downloaded this thing, and then during that solar eclipse in December in Sagittarius, you had Saturn and K2 together, and that has to deal with basically having to work off karma, because Saturn is the judge. Saturn rules physical reality, and K2 is death and karma. So we had some debt to work off, with ourselves and with the universe. So the next chart I want to talk about here is we're going to have the next solar eclipse coming. It's going to be right on the solstice, summer solstice, so Midsummer's Day. It's going to be June 21st, 2020. So that'll again be a solar eclipse in Gemini. And that will again be visible in the Middle East, northern India, China, that whole swath of territory. But this time, and then the sun, moon, and Rahu will be together because, Rahu is the eclipse, and, solar eclipses, sun and moon come together. So, sun, moon, and Rahu will be in Gemini, sign of the lungs, but they'll be in Mrigasira nakshatra. So again, Mrigasira, it's the mini constellation that symbolizes, among other things, the elixir of life, the elixir of immortality. So, huge positive here. There are cures coming, there are treatments, vaccines, the whole bit. All that stuff is coming. A lot of positive things are going to happen. there are a lot of things going on in the astrology too that are helping governments and different big institutions respond to this and take really good constructive action. So there's a lot to look forward to here. It's not all doom and gloom. But when these things happen, especially when you get Rahu involved, it's easy to project your illusions out onto the outside world and project your dark fantasies and see them playing out. Rahu is illusion. Rahu is a trickster. And so we all have this inner trickster because we all have the forces of these planets inside us. So, Rahu can fool people. It's like, I have Rahu in my first house. I have to look out for this. I have to ask myself, is what I'm seeing really real? And we all have different influences of Rahu in our charts, but the more Rahu influence you have, the more you have to ask yourself, am I cooking this up, or is this the real thing? It can also give you the ability to see through the facade of things when we're getting manipulated and deceived, but it's a double-edged sword, so you got to treat it that way. You got to treat Rahu that way. And if you get egotistical about things, Rahu will definitely basically judo throw your ego, and he'll lay a trail of breadcrumbs that lead you to having your ego judo throw you. So I like Rahu, but you have to he's going to keep you honest. So what else? Talked about Mrigasira. Oh yeah, another point of positivity. Venus is entering Taurus on the 28th of March. So in a mere 1 week. And happy solstice, by the way. Today's the 21st as I'm doing this. So Venus in Taurus. Venus is, romance, beauty, creativity, friendships, social activity. Venus is also caregiving, nursing, medicine, and Taurus is Venus's home sign. Venus is stronger nowhere else. It's Venus's mansion. Venus is exalted in Pisces. She's a celebrity there, but she's at home in Taurus. Venus is the goddess that nourishes everything, symbolizes that. So she's at home, and she's unstoppable. She's pretty unstoppable to begin with. She's at home in Taurus, forget about it. So she's going to hang around there till August because of a retrograde. So we're going to have, what is that? That's like 5 months. 5 months of Venus in Taurus. That's really cool. So when a planet retrogrades, basically it's a time to review things and to look at things again and to correct things. So we're going to get a chance to individually and collectively to go back and correct our health and the way we take care of ourselves, and the way we take care of each other. So really positive time. And while all this is going on, you have Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn, who rules the 3D, who rules, Saturn's a public servant. He's like a government minister. He rules government. He rules authority, hierarchy. He's all about doing things the right way, getting the job done the right way the first time. Saturn is in his mansion in Capricorn. He's at home. And Mars is going to spend some time there very soon. So, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Mars is a celebrity, is very strong. So this will give government a lot of power, a lot of ability to clean this stuff up, to contain this. Saturn is boundaries and limitations, borders. So governments have very wisely locked borders down. And this whole situation is teaching us, it's bringing us together because it's a situation where border control and environmentalism is very useful because a lot of these places that are having coronavirus problems really badly, horrible pollution. So it's a good situation to bring us together. So again, we'll have almost half of 2020 with Venus in Taurus. So it's a time to come together because again, Venus is social activity, relationships, friendships, diplomacy. So really good times. And then, we've had Jupiter in K2 in Sagittarius, and that really, K2 is the other world. K2 is mysticism and spirituality, and it's all about moving on to the other world. Jupiter, when it conjuncts with a planet, it magnifies it, and Jupiter is thought to be the only planet that can control K2 and Rahu. So when you put Jupiter and K2 together, you sort of get a thinning between the veil of, this physical world and the spirit worlds, or, the other sort of less substantial dimensions, you might say. So, people have had some weird feelings from this, with this Jupiter and K2 in Sagittarius. A lot of people have felt like death was imminent. They've been having memories and dreams of people who've passed. A lot of people have been dying, obviously. People have been having, scary situations where they almost died. So, the worlds are kind of thin here. And like I said about the eclipse on December 26th, when you had Saturn and K2 together, it was basically a signal for, karma time. So another big thing with this whole coronavirus is, whether you get it or not, and then how that goes for you. If you get it, it's all about karma. And, if you want to protect yourself from this, really, the best way you can do that is to make sure that you are always growing and evolving and changing, and that you're willing to do that. Because the universe hates wasted energy, and it hates wasted time. So, if you are just going along and you're trying to be the same person you've always been, and you think you have things figured out and you're at a degree of perfection, or you don't need to do anything different, and you will not have to do anything different for the foreseeable future, then that's stagnation, and you can really be, drawing this down on yourself. So nobody is that perfect. It doesn't matter what kind of magic tricks you can do, what feats of strength or endurance or intelligence you can do, or whatever the hell, what credential, accolade, status, doesn't matter. The universe, nature hates stagnation, and it finds ways to get rid of it. So learn something new. Even if you're a master at whatever, learn something new within that discipline, or within that art, or within that field, because you don't know it all. Humble yourself and find something new to learn. Examine yourself, see if you can approach life differently, change your attitude, whatever. Just keep the change going, because you can't preserve yourself the same way, unchangeably, timelessly. That's for the celestial gods. That's not a human trait. So I urge you not to try to do that. So don't live in the past. Don't live in the glory days. Stay in the present and look forward. So what else did I want to do here? That's about it with the like I said, there's so many positives to this, and the government's containing the spread and the outbreak of the virus, and some of the best, brightest minds are working on it. Well, that's the other thing too with Jupiter and K2 and Sagittarius. The last time they were there together in Sagittarius was the 1890s, when there were huge scientific breakthroughs, and Nikola Tesla was coming onto the scene, and Thomas Edison, and the spiritualist movement was coming about. So this is a time for a lot of potential scientific and medical breakthroughs, and we could also see spirituality really influencing science and medicine, and really becoming a science in and of itself. Spirituality already can be a science, but I guess what I mean to say is it could be more openly and publicly acknowledged as such. Because, scientists and religious or spiritual people could actually work together if either of them felt like thinking about things a different way and seeing things differently and not trying to win the pissing contest. But, you know, not an easy thing to ask of, you know, everybody. So, you know, great positives here. So, you know, this thing is going to start blowing over really by the end of April, in my opinion. And, you know, by June, we're going to be like, what the hell was that? When you look at China's chart, you know, you combine China's birth chart with the chart in November. I could see this coming back in China, coronavirus coming back around November, December, you know, for the winter in China. The good thing is that every other country will know what to do. They'll know to shut the borders down, stop the flights, you know, the whole bit. You know, and really, you know, this whole kind of 14 days of just, you know, sort of this quarantine and staying home, and it's giving people a chance to reconnect with friends and families and people they haven't talked to, and just being able to stay home and sleep and take it easy. It gives you a chance to recharge your health. So that's something we need in the modern world. We need to renew our appreciation that you need to rest just as much as you need to work or exercise or work out. The rest is just as important, if not more important. I've known a lot of centenarians, you know, centenarians, people who have lived over 100 years old. I never knew one triathlete or bodybuilder among them, or extreme athlete among them, because, you know, people do that stuff, burn themselves out. So you need to rest. So this is really changing a whole frame of mind. A lot of people are telecommuting, and I think a lot of people are going to demand telecommuting after this, because they can get just as much done from home, and they don't have to waste 2 hours a day commuting. So a lot of positives coming out of this. And, you know, it just shows us that we have to slow down once in a while. You just can't continuously expand. And it is in, let's check the chart here. Is it in June, I want to say? Jupiter is going to transit out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn. So Jupiter is going to be in Saturn's home. So Jupiter is like that optimistic expansion, you know. You know, Jupiter can sound like, you know, these corporate types when they're like, we can have unlimited growth forever and ever and ever. Well, no, you can't. And that has the idea that you can just keep growing and growing exponentially forever has really hurt the environment, and it's hurt our health, because people work harder and harder every year, and we're still making the same money we made in 1999. So something's got to give somewhere. So, and actually it's March 30th, so it's right at the end of the month. Jupiter is going to transition into Capricorn. So Jupiter's tendency to just keep expanding and expanding things, he can't do that in Saturn's house. Saturn's going to be like, wait a minute, we got to clean stuff up here. You can't keep adding on and growing and expanding. We got to sort some shit out. So this is going to be a good year to, you know, you still have to go to work, but to kind of kick back and renew your health and, you know, take a different look at your life and, you know, see what you can do differently. So I want to get into a whole other topic here. Now, I want to talk about the chart on the 24th of March. So that's just in a few days here. It's on, it is now Saturday. That's on Tuesday. So the 24th of March is, it's right after the spring equinox, which is, spring equinox is the Passover. You know, you have this Jewish holiday, the Passover, and, you know, there's this whole story about the angel of death passing over the Hebrew houses in Egypt and going and killing the firstborn of Egypt because they didn't have lamb's blood over the door. No, it's about the sun. All religion is astrology. So on the spring equinox, the sun passes over the equator, and that's a huge day of celebration. And it's kind of the solar New Year's Day throughout time, because that's when the sun comes back to the northern hemisphere, and you know that summer's coming back. So that's the Passover, is the sun passing over the equator. So anyway, 24th of March is also, well, this year will be the Vedic New Year. So the Vedic New Year starts with the full moon in Pisces. I was actually born on a full moon in Pisces. It was in April, back in the 80s when I was born. So, kind of cool. But on the 24th of March, we have a really interesting chart here. And, I pulled this for New York City just because we're in one of these, Rahu and Gemini years that comes around every 18 years, just like 9/11. And so in New York City really is the capital of the English-speaking empire, U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. South Africa to a degree. South Africa is more of a BRICS country these days, but, So New York City, capital of the English-speaking empire. It's the financial capital. D.C. is really a puppet for New York City because everybody in Washington, D.C. gets campaign donations from big individuals and big companies in New York, and the banks that lend money to the federal government via the Federal Reserve so it can operate are mostly headquartered in New York City. And the Federal Reserve is it's a private consortium of banks. It's a group of banks that lend the Treasury money. Whole other subject I won't get into. But they are headquartered in New York, and that's what makes it really the capital of the English-speaking empire. So what we've got here in this chart, you want to look to the upper right, and that's the 12th house. So the 12th house deals with isolated places, hidden places, secrets that we don't know about, things that can pop up out of nowhere that totally shock us and surprise us. 12th deal a lot with this stuff, but the 12th house especially has a connotation for things going on in sort of secret, hidden, isolated places. So I think it's the day before Mars transits into Capricorn, which is in the 12th house. So by the 24th, Mars comes to 1 degree, but really, on this day, on this Vedic New Year, March 24th, Mars is basically conjunct with Pluto and Saturn. So wherever you see Mars and Saturn, one thing you have is a battleground, because Mars and Saturn just traditionally it brings setbacks, conflicts, delays, but also battles. And Pluto, which is at 0 degrees of Capricorn, and 0 degree is the miracle degree. So it's like all this infinite potential to do almost anything. So Pluto is the god of the underworld, and Pluto shows us things that we were in denial of, things that were hidden from us, or things that we were just putting off dealing with. So, to me, when you get Pluto, Mars, Saturn, Capricorn in the 12th house, to me this is it's like a hidden war within government. Maybe even a hidden war within a secret government. And you say secret government, people think you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, members of the Senate have used this term, after the Iran-Contra hearings, Senator Inouye of Hawaii, in the closing remarks, he said, well, one thing we've found from these Iran-Contra proceedings is that there is a secret government that has a private navy and a private air force, and it does pretty much whatever it wants. So that secret government that those hearings found was never dealt with. That whole matter was never dealt with. We just went back to the materialistic, kind of greedy, alcohol and drug fueled 80s. And we never dealt with that. I think that was 1987. We just went back to the party, to the bling bling. So we never dealt with that. So Pluto may make us deal with this again. It might be like this whole war in hidden government or war behind the scenes in government may rear its head and force us to deal with it. Because, again, coronavirus was, galactic center of the universe, forcing us to deal with our negativity and our self-righteousness. That is really in our unconscious minds. And we've chosen to deal with all this negativity because the world chose to contain coronavirus and deal with it. So, but we may have to deal with this whole business of secret governments and secret wars, with this Pluto, Mars, and Saturn in Capricorn in the 12th house. And this is what time is this in the morning? I think this might be like 8 a.m. or something, is the maximum for the full moon in Pisces. Let me check that out. App's kind of weird. Hang on. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, it's about 5:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning is when the maximum for the new moon is. So, we may wake up to something interesting on Tuesday, or it's going to come a few days, a few weeks down the road. Because when you have these conjunctions, these full moons, these new moons, these eclipses, it's basically when the energetic window opens, and that energy is released out into the world, and it can turn into something. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. While this new moon is going on, just below that top right there, you have Jupiter and Ketu in Sagittarius. Jupiter is at the 29th degree, so the other miracle degree other than 0 degrees. So Jupiter in Sagittarius can really teach you very profound, deep lessons, deep spiritual lessons, which can be harsh, or it can lend itself to extremism and the whole deep state activity. Deep state's a real thing. I went to boarding school for years with very elite people. I was a naval intelligence officer for a few years, and there was such a thing as a deep state, and it's just very wealthy people and corporations just kind of manipulating politics and getting what they want. It's not like a lot of the crazy shit people talk about on YouTube videos with sacrifices and all kinds of somebody out there is probably doing that stuff, but what the deep state really is it's just wealthy people and corporations just puppeteering governments and getting what they want. Some people will do anything to make money and to keep it and to have influence. So the whole point is with Jupiter at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, that can lend itself to some extremism, and again Ketu is also in Sagittarius. So deep state activity is fanatical and extremist, in its own right. Getting back to 9/11, it's pretty insane to think that 9/11, something that sophisticated, was planned from a cave in Afghanistan. There's a lot more to the story. I'm not going to get into that fully here, but use your head, and the whole thing about the hijacker's passport flying out of the burning plane so the FBI could find it on the sidewalk, in Manhattan. That's pretty goddamn far-fetched. And then half of those identified hijackers were actually alive in Saudi Arabia. They were nowhere near New York at the time. A lot of ins and outs to that. But, what we might find here is that on this day, we may be facing the news that, yes, the deep state is real. Another thing we may face that day or that week or, sometime shortly thereafter, we may be hearing more of a whodunit narrative about the whole coronavirus. It's already made some mainstream outlets like Newsweek magazine and some big newspapers that the Chinese government is calling for an investigation about where coronavirus came from, because they're saying that it actually came from North America. In October 2019, they had the World Military Games. It's kind of like the military Olympics between all the the militaries of the world. That happened in Wuhan in October 2019, and that's when experts think coronavirus first emerged in Wuhan. So that's possible. Another thing that is real is that there is a top-level biohazard lab, a level 4 biohazard lab, 20 miles from Wuhan. And they have like a satellite laboratory right in the marketplace where the whole thing is said to have started. So, a lot of companies play with all kinds of deadly diseases in their labs, and they do experiments with them, and stuff gets out because containment procedures are not always perfect and mistakes happen. And it's always possible somebody could have released it. Who knows? I have no definitive evidence, but anything is possible. And moving into the future and building a better world, we have to acknowledge that anything is possible. And we have to acknowledge that nice people don't run the world. That people have a tough one with that. The easiest way to manipulate people is to just smile at them. And we've been getting manipulated by smiles for a long time. So this narrative may come out, getting back to the Chinese saying that, this thing is man. And universities, experts, epidemiology experts at universities in China have said that this virus is man-made. So we may be hearing more of a whodunit story. I think at this point, mainstream media is ridiculing the Chinese for saying that this virus is man-made, and they want an investigation into how it started. But you're going to gain some traction on this because, even in Boston there was a Harvard professor who was arrested for having some, part in giving information to a biotech company, and there's a company called Biogen in Boston. The head statistician for the company was a Chinese national, just up and left the United States and flew to China when she was infected with coronavirus, and she used pharmaceuticals to hide her fever from the screening, and so all kinds of strange things have gone on. So, and another thing that happened too is this top level biohazard lab near Wuhan was taken over by the Chinese Army's bioweapons division. So they are looking at this differently than the United States, and I think that's a reason why there's not a lot of data out of China, is because they're looking at this as a man-made biohazard, and mainstream media in the West doesn't want to talk about that because it raises the whole subject that that these types of things go on. And I've talked about this subject with people, and they refuse to believe that somebody could be that sort of unscrupulous as to make a pathogen like this, and possibly just release it. So, but to make the world better, we have to stop being naive. So, and another thing, with this 24th of March chart is you have Neptune and Mercury in the first house. And the sign in the first house is Aquarius. So Aquarius is like we the people, the massive people. And Mercury is the intellect. And Neptune deals with hidden agendas and, lies, hidden truths, deceptions. So, this could go a couple of ways. It could be that our intellects finally make the connections that, some very shady things are going on in the world and have been for a very long time. Or, we could get deceived once again like we did back during 9/11. So it's up to us. One thing we have to look at here is that, the war on terror is really kind of a farce because there's no way to measure it, and there's no way to determine when it has been won or if we're losing it or what. It's like this amorphous blob, and you can never make any sense of it. And it can just go on and on and on for decades and centuries. So what came with the war on terror was more surveillance, less freedom, less privacy. And that's good for government because government's run by a bunch of control freaks. So, the Patriot Act, it keeps getting renewed, and God knows when that's going to go away. So the thing we have to watch out for is that we don't have some sort of a biological Patriot Act where you have to go through a medical exam every time you want to travel. Just like how you have to get your genitals groped by the TSA or get backscatter radiation shot through you by the TSA just to get onto a flight. So we have to have our dignity intact here and, not let this happen, because we could have some Bio-Patriot Act added if we're not sharp about this and we're naive about it. So, have dignity and, don't put leaders up on pedestals. Leaders are just doing a job. The President of the United States is the foreman of the help. He's basically the national butler. Every president, I'm not just talking about Donald Trump, everybody is like that. Every president, senators, they're public servants. They work for you. You are their boss. Your governor, your mayor is not your boss. And we have to remember this to, make the world better. So, and the last thing here that I want to talk about is really, where the economy fits into all this, because a lot of people, really intuitive people, have seen, mega death and stuff like that in the future, in the near future. What could be even deadlier than this whole coronavirus is the economic fallout, because there's a lot of stuff that's not getting manufactured in China and shipped over here, and a lot of people have lost their jobs and businesses have closed, and and I'm sure maybe food production has been affected by this, and food prices will likely go up too. I hope not, but so really the economic fallout could be really big, and we'll get into this in future videos, but later in the year, much later in the year, actually let's check when this is going to be. Much later in the year, Rahu is going to transit into Taurus. So, when Rahu is exalted in Taurus, but in Taurus deals basically with wealth, with material wealth. And so when Rahu gets to Taurus, we're no longer dealing with infectious diseases and their cures. We're going to be dealing with economics and money and that kind of thing. So it's let me see here. So it looks like it's going to be in the fall. Yeah, judging by this, it's probably fall, summer. Let me do one more search. I don't want to eat your time up here. Let's see. Yeah, I'd say probably September, October. Get back to you on that. Rahu is going to transit into Taurus. So we're going to be dealing with the economic fallout from this virus, and we're going to be dealing with the economic fallout from years of really bad banking, from 100 and some years of the Federal Reserve, and from 2009, the bailout didn't fix anything. It actually would have been cheaper to give all the taxpayers $1 million and have them pay their debts off. But, we're not allowed to do that. So, and it's all funny money created out of thin air anyway. So the bailouts didn't fix the banks. And, one thing you've had here in 2020 is you've had record CEOs jumping ship from major corporations. Even, Bill Gates stepped away from Berkshire Hathaway and Microsoft, and, to focus on his own projects, whatever that means. And it's been banks, tech companies, you name it. CEOs have been stepping away. And, when you look at what the economy's doing, I think they're like rats trying to get off sinking ships. I think the stock market's going to be up and down till November, and in November things are going to, take a bit of a nosedive. So it's going to be interesting. So, just be aware of that factor too. The economic factor that's, kind of the fallout from this whole virus scenario. So that's that. And thanks for tuning in. If you want to see how these current events affect you specifically, I can do a Vedic astrology reading with you. I can basically do an overlay of the charts of the current events over your birth chart. We can see what's activated in your chart, what's affecting you. Rune readings are really good for this too. They give you a mind map. They show you what you're doing well and where there are blocks, in your psyche, in your mind, your conscious mind, your unconscious. And then I also have some videos on sale for download, some Qigong videos. Qigong is a great mind-body practice. One thing it does really well is it boosts your immune system, and that's something we can all use in times like this. And they don't cost much. They're like $25 and $30 each. So I've got Thor's Hammer Qigong and then the Celestial Qigong. So that's everything. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll have more coming your way. Have a good one.